Good evening. Due to COVID-19, this meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order N-2920, which suspends certain requirements of the Brown Act. This meeting is being webcast on Comcast TV Channel 15 and live streamed on the city's YouTube channel at https://www.youtube.com/user/City of Hayward and on the city website at https://hayward.legistar.com/calendar.aspx. The mayor will call upon members of the city council, city staff, and other speakers by name and ask that they state their names before giving comments or remarks. Individuals participating via Zoom with their cameras enabled are reminded that their activities are visible to viewers. City council members and members of the public participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature, and the mayor will call upon them at the appropriate time. Members participating via teleconference wishing to speak should dial *9, and they will be called upon by the last 4 digits of their phone number. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Written public comments received by email at list-mayor-council@hayward-ca.gov, city clerk at hayward-ca.gov, or via e-comment by 3 p.m. will be distributed to the city council and staff, published on the city's meeting and agenda center under documents received after published agenda, and entered into the record. Documents received after 3 p.m. through the adjournment of the meeting will be included as part of the meeting record and published the following day. A roll call vote will be taken for all action items. In order to get the full Zoom experience, please make sure your application is up to date. Public members wishing to speak with the City Council can send an email to list-mayor-council@hayward-ca.gov or cityclerk@hayward-ca.gov.
Thank you, and welcome to this meeting of the Hayward City Council and jointly the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District Board of Directors. The City Council itself sits as the Board of Directors of the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District, and we are going to start with this meeting with the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District board meeting. And so I will call that meeting to order. And to start us off for both meetings, I will ask Councilmember Lamnin to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. And Miriam has the flag. Thank you, Miriam. So please rise if you would like and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes, Madam Mayor. This is for the GHAD Board and the City Council. Member Andrews.
Present.
Member Lamnin.
Present.
Member Marquez.
Present.
Member Salinas.
Present.
Member Wahab. Here. Member Cermeño.
I am present.
Mayor and Chair Halliday.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we'll take public comments now just for the GHAD board, and we will have another public comments item for the regular city council meeting when we get to that meeting. This is public comments on the Geologic Hazard Abatement District that are on items that are not otherwise on the GHAD agenda this evening. I don't see any hands raised from attendees. Madam City Clerk, did we have anyone who wanted to make a public comment for the GHAD meeting?
I'm not aware of any individual wishing to speak, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we will move on to our regular agenda for the GAD meeting. I think at this point, I would like to introduce Eric Harrell, who is the GAD manager. He's with us this evening to lead this part of the meeting, along with other members of his staff. We have one item on the consent calendar. That's item number 1, approval of the minutes from our board meeting of a year ago on May 26, 2020. I think we can go ahead and try to take care of that. Do I hear Councilmember Wahab?
I'll move.
Second.
And seconded by moved by Councilmember Wahab, seconded by Councilmember Marquez. Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll? Do we have a clerk for the GAD board to do that, or is our city clerk subbing in for that?
In this case, we can have the GAD attorney is the GAD clerk also, so she can do that, or if you'd like.
Yeah,
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Ralston. Is that who, or?
it will be
Amara.
Amara Morrison who will.
Okay, Amara Moore. Oh, there you are. Okay, hi, Amara. Ms. Morrison, you want to call the roll for the city for the GAD board of directors?
This may be slightly out of order, so my apologies. But so a motion to approve the minutes of May the 26th of 2020 was made by Board Member Wahab, seconded by Marquez. So Board Member Lamnon.
Aye.
Board Member Andrews.
Abstain.
Okay. Board Member Marquez.
Aye.
Okay. Board Member Salinas.
Aye.
Board Member Wahab.
Yes.
And Board Member Zermania.
Yes.
And finally, Chair.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Yes. And I'll just say that Councilmember Andrews, welcome to the GAD Board of Directors. This will be your first meeting of that board, and which is, I assume, why you abstained from approving the minutes from last year's meeting. But welcome to the board here. All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. We will move on to item number 2, which is a public hearing on the GAD budget. And we'll be asking to approve a resolution for the budget for the 2021-22 fiscal year. And I'll turn this over to Mr. Harrell.
Thank you very much. Just since we're on this meeting, I just wanted to introduce the members of the GAD staff to the board. We have the GAD treasurer, Dave Fernandez. We also have the GAD attorney, Amara Morrison, and we have Haley Ralston, who I work with as the GAD manager. And Haley will be presenting the presentation on the budget for this year for the Hayward.
Great. Thank you, Eric. So good evening, Chair Halliday and board members. Tonight, we have prepared a presentation supporting the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2021-2022 for the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District. And I will share my screen now with that. I assume you can all see my screen now. So the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District includes 2 developments at this time, the Reserve Development and the Erstead Development. First, I'll discuss the the Reserve Development. The Reserve Development was the first development to form the Hayward GAD in 2016, and it includes 179 residences within the GAD, and initially formed the GAD with a plan of control and engineers report, which describes the duties of the GAD and funding for the GAD. So in 2016, an engineers report was approved for the GAD, which set the budget described for the items in the plan of control and set an assessment each year for the reserve development. In fiscal year 2020-2021, all of the units were assessed as building has finished for the reserve development, and the assessment was set at $1,693.90 per residential unit within the reserve development. And the revenue stream is, as mentioned, funded by tax assessments for the residents within the GHAD. And the budget uses the revenue stream to divide into operations for the GHAD and then reserve accumulations. So an annual budget has funds set aside for day-to-day management, administration, and monitoring and scheduled maintenance. And then long-term is also planned for in the budget as well, such as reserve accumulation for major repairs and response and capital improvement repairs. So the second development in the Hayward GHAD is the Erstead development. This one was annexed in and approved by the GHAD board in 2019 with their own plan of control and engineers report. So in fiscal year 2020, 2021, there were no units in the Erstead development assessed. However, the developer has informed us that they have pulled building permits for the Erstead development and anticipate 42 of the total 59 residences will be assessed in fiscal year 2021, 2022 for the Erstead development. So those funds will go into revenue for the Hayward GHAD in total for this next fiscal year. So since the developer has pulled building permits, they are now in a 3-year developer supported period for responsibilities outlined in the Erstead plan of control. So the developer is responsible for everything outlined in the plan of control for a period of 3 years until they begin the transfer process that will go through a punch list the developer may have to perform to have the GHAD accept the responsibilities, and that will be brought to the board at a later date when that process gets going and is completed. So tonight before you is the action being considered is acceptance of the Hayward GHAD budget for the next fiscal year, 2021, 2022. So here is a budget summary. The proposed program budget is for the next fiscal year is $147,560 and is broken down as below. Majority of the funds go towards preventative maintenance and operations of the GHAD, such as scheduled monitoring, scheduled maintenance, such as V-ditch cleaning, wildfire, hazard fire breaks, and then anything else, that may come up that the GHAD needs to perform. Administration and accounting is for day-to-day operations, some insurance coverage such as general liability, and then additional outside professional services are funds for GHAD clerk, GHAD treasurer, and GHAD attorney as such, just as an example for those categories. A reserve summary to date, for the next fiscal year, we anticipate a revenue of $391,000 and that includes, as I mentioned, both the reserve and the Erstead development funds being part of the revenue. And we estimate that $244,000 of this will go into the reserve fund. So as outlined here below, estimated reserve at the end of this current fiscal year is to be about $836,000, with the anticipated assessment revenue from both developments and estimated interest income from those reserves, minus the proposed budget for this next fiscal year, 2021, 2022, we come out to about a little over $1 million is what we're estimating for the Hayward GHAD reserves at the end of fiscal year 2021, 2022. So here's a chart we've prepared of the actual reserve accumulation versus the forecast outlined in engineer's report. So currently the reserve is trending above the estimated, which is good. These dips in the graph represent a money taken out from the reserve if there was a geologic event that the GHAD needed to respond to, for example. So in the engineer's report estimates an event happening 1 every 10 years, but it may occur more frequently or less frequently on that. So far, we have been able to stay above the target due to, lack of rains within the area. So drier seasons means likely less slope stability issues. So we're on trend here, or on track, which is good. So coming up for the Hayward GHAD, as mentioned, Ørsted is in the developer supported period. So we'll still have some time before we bring acceptance of the parcels within the Ørsted development to the board. And then for not included on here, but did want to note that almost all of the parcels within the reserve development have been accepted by the GHAD board. There is parcel A, which is the future park parcel, parcel B, a smaller parcel on the other across from the park parcel, and parcel P within the reserve development that have not been accepted by the GHAD board yet. Parcel B is in a punch list period with the developer. The GHAD has provided them a punch list of items they need to complete before the GHAD board can accept it. And then we have been contacted about other developments needing to satisfy their conditions of approval for annexing into the Hayward GHAD. So we've been contacted by a couple nearby developments and working with them on that. And then we've also have had discussions with the city of Hayward on potential hard parcel annexations to the Hayward GHAD. So we recommend approval of the Hayward GHAD budget for the next fiscal year, and we are available to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Actually, I have one about the reserve and the projections, and what happens if at what point I think is enough money enough, and that and if there are no geologic events, knock on wood here, but at what point do you assess, do we have too much reserve, and should we reduce the annual assessment or what?
Sure. Yeah. So great question. So we typically, after some time, at about 10 years after collecting assessments, we'll do a reserve study to see how the reserve is performing. If we feel that it is adequately funded to both support the ongoing budget, typically, maintenance and operations, in addition to funding a geologic hazard repair, then we can look at revising the assessment levy. Additionally, we know that geologic hazards can be costly and infrequent, but also unpredictable. Additionally, the reserve development, also with the Ørsted development, they sit on both sides of the Hayward fault. And there is, I believe, a 30% chance or so of it having an event, in the next 30 years or so. So we definitely take that into consideration when allocating reserve funds to respond to those, especially what the GHAD plan of control outlines our responsibilities are. So that those are definitely something we will be looking into, as we get to that point. I think we're not there yet, but that will definitely be something we'll be considering if we get to that point.
And I assume that this money is invested in a way that does earn some minimal amount of interest too. I don't.
Correct. As we have Dave Fernandez on the call here, he can touch a little bit about that. We try to aim for 2% over inflation, and it can depend on, kind of how, I guess, a little bit of the economy does and whatnot too. But I'm sure he can touch a little bit more on that if you'd like.
All right, Mr. Fernandez.
Yes, thank you. Correct. We look at the reserve fund and the operating fund in two separate buckets, just like Haley described earlier. So the operating fund, we try to invest in cash type of instruments so that it's available throughout the year. And then the reserve fund, we are targeting a rate of return over inflation. So our estimates for inflation are 1.75%, and we are targeting some level above that. And yes, we do take very conservative steps when we invest that. But because we are targeting over inflation, we do need to take a little bit of risk in there, but we moderate that with an offset with fixed income pieces as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions? I'm not seeing any, so I would entertain a motion to approve the.
So move, Mayor. Second.
Moved by Councilmember Zermania, seconded by Councilmember Salinas. Was that? Yeah. Okay. And so, Ms. Morrison, would you?
Yes. Very good. I'll call for the roll count. Board Member Lamnon.
Aye.
Board Member Andrews.
Aye.
Board Member Marquez. Board Member Marquez.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Board Member Salinas.
Yes.
Thank you. Board Member Wahab.
Yes.
Board Member Zermania.
See.
And Board Member Halliday. I'm sorry, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The motion carries unanimously.
All right, great. Thank you all. Then we had one other item, and that is we're receiving a report from GHAD Manager Harrell on the newsletter put out by the Geologic Hazard Abatement District Board. Mr. Harrell?
Thank you. So we did, and maybe Haley will put that up on the screen. We were asked by Board Member Lamnon to bring before the board a informational brochure to provide to residents within the district. We manage a number of GHADs and provide these for a number of our GHADs. People really don't know GHADs unless they live in one. So this provides them some informational mailing about their GHAD and how to contact the manager and other staff so that they can understand why they're getting something on their tax bill that has a Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District on it, and what they can do about that and what contacts they can have. So we were looking for direction from the board to, if this was appropriate, we would do a mailing to every resident within the reserve development so they're aware, and also so that there is a Hayward GHAD website which has much of this information, but it also, not everybody knows about it. So we just wanted to get any feedback or opinions if this was something that was appropriate. It's worked well with other districts, and that way people know what they're paying for and who to contact if they have questions or concerns.
Yes, I see your name and Ms. Ralston's name there with your email addresses to contact. That's good. So I think we do have, is that it for your report on that?
Yes, it was just an informational, to give the board an informational discussion on this.
Well, I think we have some questions or comments, maybe. Board Member Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. You already answered my question. Sorry, I didn't see that second slide, but I do appreciate staff taking the time to do this. And when do you anticipate mailing this out to the residents?
If this is the board's desire to send this out, we can put it out within a week or two. We have the assessment rolls which have all the mailing addresses, so we would send it out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, your hand is up. Did you want to say something?
Yes,
Ms. Lenz?
Yes, Madam Mayor, my apologies. I'm not sure if the public hearing opened for the last item that
good catch there. I'm going to go back. Okay, we'll go back to item number 2, which was the GHAD budget. And if necessary, we will redo the vote, but I will ask if there is any member of the public who would like to comment on the GAD budget item that we just voted on, but I think could redo if there is public comment. And I'm assuming that none of the council member hands that are up are about that. They're about the other item. So seeing no one from the public raising their hand, I'm going to close the public comment. I do believe, well, I'll ask you, Ms. Morrison, you're the attorney here for GAD. Is it okay that we don't do the vote over again since there weren't any public comments?
There is no need to recount the vote, given the fact that there have been no public comments. So thank you, Madam Clerk, for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have realized that too, but okay. So good. We got past that. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. And so we'll go next to Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you. And thank you for
We're back on the item about the newsletter.
Right. Thank you. And thank you for bringing this forward. I think from my perspective from direction, since that's what you asked for, two things. One, is there a way to have information in another language? I know our city has that link on our website. Is that possible to link on the GAD website to have a translation?
So we currently don't have one prepared in another language, but we could work with a translator, or if there's any city resource that the city would be able to loan the GAD for such, we can discuss that, and we can prepare that to have two different languages posted on the website with this flyer.
So yeah, we have multiple languages in the city, and I would ask that the website at least have as much language capacity, and I'll leave to the experts on the city staff and the GAD staff to talk about what are options there.
Sure.
That would be great. And then I think this is great and could be a postcard. I don't think the whole, the board members necessarily need to be there. The map necessarily needs to be there, but here's the website, here's the phone number if you can't access the website, here's the language. If you need this in a different language, may cut down the mailing cost. And I think that's probably sufficient. But I appreciate your responsiveness and the opportunity for the community to understand what this is at a deeper level. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, Board Member Andrews.
I'm not sure if Board Member Salinas was ahead of me, but do you mind if I go?
You are on the list ahead of him, so.
Oh, okay, sure. All right. So I wanted to also, I agree with Board Member Lamnon that it could be a postcard. I was actually going to say, if you're going to keep it a one-pager, if you could have the website with the contact information in one place, just because it would be easier to contact you if it was in the front, and put the board of directors in the back or take it out. So I was agreeing with those comments earlier, but that's another suggestion.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And now Board Member Salinas.
Yeah, this might sound totally opposite to what the others said, but if our names are on there, if you could just include our email addresses, that was it. But if it's going to be on the website, put it on the website. It's okay.
Okay.
We could. I would say we could include email addresses because, as it seems, we can post this newsletter on the website and people are directed to there to see the newsletter, and then we can include the board member email addresses on there.
Yeah, and if you have it translated in multiple languages, you can just upload the PDFs and people just download the PDF or click on the PDF or something. But okay, thank you.
And remind me again what the plan is. The plan is to mail this physically to the GAD, to the people in the GAD district, right?
That's correct. We were going to provide a mailing to each resident within the district, and that way it just provides a notification and information on the website so they can get additional information. They're just aware of the GAD then.
So I think this is the way I'm looking at this, it's probably an 8.5 by 11 sheet that has two sides. In terms of the mailing, what was the plan? To put it in an envelope or?
That's what we've done for other GADs. We just mail it by first class mail. It's just part of, if the board does that, it's just part of our administration that we do. So we would just take care of it.
And so, council members have been talking about a postcard, but, remember, this is a limited mailing. It's to like a few hundred people at the most, right?
Right. It's only going to be 107. Yeah. Well, there'll be 179 of these going out.
So are people okay with that plan of basically mailing this whole sheet as is with the changes that have been suggested? Which is adding our email addresses and...
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
I'm okay with the newsletter and just with the email addresses. I just feel like I'm going to end up forwarding a lot of this to staff. So maybe think about font type and colors and all that, just so it can be easier for the residents to get, an answer quickly.
Sure.
Okay, great. Anyone else? All right, and we don't need any motion or vote on this item.
We don't, Madam Chair, we don't need a motion or a vote, but even though this is not a public hearing, if you wish to see if there are any, that might be helpful.
Thank you. And so I will open public comment on this item, the newsletter item, and ask if there's any members of the public present who would like to speak to this item.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yes, Seymour Lamnon have something else to offer?
Just a quick, so thank you for this. And then as new parcels get added, new residents get added, if they can also be sent the newsletter in the future, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, with that then, seeing no other hands raised, we'll move on to a report from the GHAD manager.
So as we discussed in the budget presentation, there are several parcels still within the reserve development that are undergoing punch list and transfer process. That is likely the next time we would come before the board was to have the board consider accepting those parcels as the developer completes their punch list and they're done with all their requirements. So that, other than that, it's been a quiet winter and going smoothly with the Hayward GHAD.
Great. Yes, we haven't seen you for a year, so there really haven't been any. But what you're saying is that we may be meeting sooner if the developer wants to bring those additional units in, and we need to take action to accept that.
That's correct. It would likely be if the three, probably one or two of the remaining parcels that haven't been accepted within the reserve development parcels, because the park parcel still is a ways off before the GHAD maintained improvements will be ready for even offering, because the GHAD will have detention basins and other facilities within the park, but that hasn't even been started yet. So that's likely quite a ways off. It's parcels B and P that would likely be to the board next.
Okay, so
I was going to add additionally, the parcels within the Ørsted development won't be eligible for transfer until December of 2023 because they are currently in the 3-year supported period. Correct.
So it won't be them. All right. Well, then we will either see you sooner or at the very least a year from now. Finally, do any of the GHAD board members have any report referrals or future agenda items? Not seeing any hands going up here. So with that, I think that we can thank our GHAD staff members for coming. Nice to meet you, Ms. Ralston, and nice to see you back, and also Mr. Fernandez. And good to see you again, Mr. Harrell and Ms. Morrison. And with that, I think that we can adjourn the meeting of the Hayward Geologic Hazard Abatement District Board of Directors and move to our regular City Council meeting. So thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
City of Hayward,
Thank you.
audio test.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too. All right. That brings us now to the regular meeting of the Hayward City Council. And before we, before we start that, I just want to make an announcement. In case there were any people here who had wanted to speak on item number 8 on tonight's agenda, the Amazon facility. That item has been continued to a date uncertain at the request of the applicant, so we will not be hearing that item tonight. And so if you were here to make a public comment about that item, you could make a comment under public comments on items not otherwise on the agenda, or you could wait until that item comes back and speak to it then. So with that, I will move into the closed session announcement. The City Council did meet earlier this evening in closed session to discuss the performance appraisal of the city manager, as we do every year, and we took no reportable action at that meeting. So now we're going to move on to our presentation this evening, and that is a proclamation declaring June as Pride Month, LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the city of Hayward. And I'm going to go ahead and read this. Whereas the city of Hayward has a diverse lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, questioning, queer, intersex, two-spirit, and gender non-conforming community, and is committed to supporting visibility, dignity, and equity for all people in the community. And whereas Hayward has been a welcoming community for LGBTQ plus residents, businesses, and organizations for decades, and whereas Hayward has been home to the Gay Queer Youth Prom for more than 25 years and was one of the first to hold such an event in the United States, and whereas the rainbow pride flag is an important symbol in recognizing and celebrating our diverse Hayward, and whereas on May 28th, 2019, Hayward acknowledged its commitment to be an inclusive, equitable, and compassionate community by resolving to fly the rainbow pride flag throughout every June in honor of Gay Pride Month in City Hall Plaza. Now, therefore, I, Barbara Halliday, Mayor of the City of Hayward, on behalf of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of June as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in the City of Hayward, and invite everyone to reflect on ways we can all live and work together with a commitment to mutual respect and understanding as we once again fly the pride flag throughout the month of June. And we will be doing that. According to City Manager, we will be raising that flag on June 1st and flying it throughout the month. And we're very pleased this evening to have here with us from Project Eden, Rochelle Collins and Robert Lopez. Let's see, I'm not, Ms. Collins, are you, Mr. Lopez, I'll turn it over to you. You would like to say something? I'm not seeing Miss Collins.
She's here.
Okay. So did you want to say something, Mr. Lopez? You need to unmute yourself if you do, but.
Yes. I'd like to again thank the City Council for making this proclamation. I think we have a lot to celebrate this year. In the transition of the administration in Washington, D.C., we're seeing the reinstatement of rights for LGBTQI2S community, rights that were taken away from us in the last 4 years, and striving towards a more equitable community within our LGBTQI2S. Many youth are excited about remaining involved in our community here in Hayward and continue to attend our Lambda Youth Group and look forward and are excited to doing our gay prom Hayward in 2022 at Chabot College. And so with that, we look forward to a very prosperous year in the work that we will be continuing to do in the city of Hayward with our youth.
Wonderful. Thank you. Oh, Ms. Collins, too. Now I see you there. Would you like to say something?
Actually, yes. I just want to say good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I just want to say thank you for creating a very safe space in the city of Hayward for the LGBTQ plus community. It's been a wonderful opportunity to encounter people who live right here in Hayward who speak highly of feeling comfortable, feeling welcome, feeling accepted in the city of Hayward. So with that, I just want to say thank you to all of you for creating that environment that is so critically important, not only for the youth, but also the older adults that we have that are in the LGBTQ community. So again, I wanted to say thank you on behalf of Project Eden and Horizon Services.
Thank you. And I think we can all be proud that this goes back a ways in Hayward, where we have been recognizing these rights in this community. And I'm glad that many more communities have joined in those areas of support since, we started many years ago. But yes, the gay prom is something I have attended a few of them. It's a very heartwarming experience to see these young people come to this event. And so I look forward to once again being able to do that after we're past this current period we're in. But I want to thank you both and the rest of the people involved in Project Eden for the work you do. We'll look forward to seeing you again next year, and look for that flag. It will be raised on June 1st and remain up there throughout the month. And we will be sending a real proclamation, as I always say. I'm reading off a sheet of paper right now, but we will send the actual nicely completed one on to you soon. All right. Well, thank you both for being here. And with that, we are now ready for public comments on items otherwise not on the agenda this evening. So I will open public comments, and I do see that I think we have Patrick.
Yes, Madam Mayor, and before, if you will allow me to display the information in case someone wants to call.
Oh, yes, please go ahead and do that.
Yes, definitely. No, ask. So community members wishing to join the meeting via Zoom can follow the information on the first page of the agenda, and it's going to be also displayed on the screen right now. And I think, there you go. Thank you. So if you are using Zoom to join the meeting, click on the raise hand button to request to speak. When joining via the phone, please press *9 to raise your hand. I will unmute your microphone when it's time for you to speak. Thank you. And with that, we can go ahead and we have the first speaker, Patrick.
Hi, I'm a resident of Patrick Avenue. About 9 months ago, you destroyed my street, and the name of bicycle and traffic calming. I live right near Tennyson Road, and the changes that were made are very dangerous to the residents of Patrick Avenue trying to back out of their driveway. I understand that we need to have bicycle lanes. Underwood Avenue, which basically parallels Patrick and GHAD, is designated for over half of it as a bicycle thoroughfare, but you've taken away ours. Having the parking lane next to the traffic lane is very dangerous. I've got grandkids that I have to put in the car seats, rear facing in the back, and if my driveway isn't available to have my daughter's van pull in, being out in the street it's scary. It is scary because coming right off the Tennyson, everybody's in a drag race to merge into one lane. I think everybody that lives on Patrick would like to have the bicycle lanes gone. I would like to see the bicycle lanes, put the parking next to the curb, put a small buffer, put the bicycle lane, and then put another buffer. In front of my house in the first block and a half of Patrick, the bicycle lane is wider than the parking lane. When you measure in between the lines, and then there's almost a 3-foot buffer, and then the parking lane, and the parking spot does not fit anything but a small vehicle comfortably. If you drive a full-size vehicle, which I drive a full-size pickup truck, I park on the line, my tires are on the line, and when I open the door, I have to sit and wait until the traffic stops. And because of the 2 traffic lanes on Tennyson turning onto Patrick, everybody's using the outside one, or most people are using the outside one, knowing that they're going to have to make an immediate left on Reader. And it just makes it a very long wait to get into my house. My next door neighbor has almost been hit 3 times trying to back out of their driveway because when we're parked in the proper spots, you can't see the traffic coming up. It has not done any favors on that. It is not very good. And one other thing, well, I got 20 seconds. The signal light at Huntwood Way in Gadding, can that be reprogrammed so that coming south on Gadding to make a left onto Huntwood Way, that light turns green for 20 seconds before the northbound Gadding, because traffic plugs up and it backs up all the way. Everybody trying to turn on the Huntwood Way, backs up all the way to Harbor. That's my other concern. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Madam City Manager, did you want to have any comments in response to that?
Our Public Works Director, Alex Amiri, is actually, we're working with and planning to do some more targeted community outreach in that area to reevaluate the improvements that have been done and to really figure out how we can work closely with the community to address some of these concerns. So those outreach meetings and conversations should be happening over the next month or so, and then we hope to bring a report back either to the Infrastructure Committee or to the Council on those discussions. So we've heard, obviously heard from the community about the concerns and want to make sure, there's obviously a need to balance, all modes of transportation on a street. That's why we do complete street projects. But I think, working closely with the community to hear their concerns and understand them and make sure that we're implementing this in a thoughtful and sort of maybe more measured way than what was originally done.
Okay, thank you. So with that, if there are no other public comments, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Oh, wait a minute. Did Councilmember Salinas, did you want to comment on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. Thank you for that, Madam City Manager. This morning, I believe there was a automobile accident on Patrick. And I guess my question is, and you don't need to answer this right now, but perhaps we look into that accident and see if that was anyhow related to, the current arrangement. And I think, I understand the balance and I understand complete streets and I understand that, but it's getting complex out there. And, I don't know when the time will come to evaluate and then start to think about reversing it. But, I know the neighborhood out there is getting frustrated. So anyways.
When we're trying to figure out and determine the details around that accident, and obviously transportation staff will be involved in the investigation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments at this point, and no other hands raised from the public, we will close public comments and move on to our action items. We have a consent calendar with items 1 through 6. Is there anyone who would like to pull any of those items off? I think, Okay, Councilmember Andrews.
I just wanted to make a comment on one of the items I don't need to pull. Is regarding the Keep Hayward Clean and Green resignation.
Yes.
Oh, just wanted to thank Patrick Commissioner for his service. And I know he was a valued member of the task force, and just wanted to acknowledge his hard work for Hayward. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, that is his resignation is item number 5. So yes, Patrick Kariuki.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then just one more thing, Mayor, also wanted to remind everyone that we are going to have a cleanup event July 24th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Juliana Plaza. That's on Mission and D. So get your grabbers and bags ready for July 24th. Thanks.
All right. You just were speaking about a future actual event of the. Oh,
sorry about that.
No, it's okay. I have to say that please excuse me this evening, but I seem to be having some internet instability that sort of goes in and out, and I don't always catch everything that someone says. So when it came back, you were saying something about Giuliani Plaza?
Yes, there will be a Keep Hayward Clean and Green event on July 24th from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
A real one in person.
A real one in person, live in action. Yes.
That is wonderful to hear, and I will definitely try to be there. And while we're at it, and since you mentioned Giuliani Plaza a while ago, I had an email from someone who wanted to know why we had a plaza dedicated to former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani in our city. We do not. Giuliani Plaza is dedicated to former Hayward Mayor Alex Giuliani. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anyone else had that it was mistaken in that way about the name of that plaza. So with that, and I was going to also just comment and ask a question. We received a communication from Steve Dunbar about the landscaping on Hesperian Boulevard, and asking whether it would, if we did it now, it could have to be redone later if we did do complete street improvements with bike lanes on Hesperian. And I just, I see Mr. Amiri is here. I just wanted to ask if that, if any future work along those lines would necessitate the redoing of this median work we're approving on the consent calendar tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't think that the work is going to affect the future work. Most of the work that is proposed to be done is basically removing some of the hardscape from the medians and replacing them with vegetation and trees. There is some work that is being done on the street itself, but that is very small compared to the removal and replacing with vegetation and ground cover. This is the last phase of this project. 2 phases of the project has already been done. This is the last phase.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Zermino?
Yes, and before I move on consensus 1 through 6, I thank the Amiri and the staff for the excellent work on Hesperian Boulevard, my neighborhood, my neck of the woods. Thank you very much. So I'm moving consensus 1 through 6.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Items 1 through 6 have been moved by Council Member Zermino, seconded by Council Member Salinas. Madam City Clerk. And we did not have any members of the public wishing to speak on any of those items. So, Madam City Clerk, will you call the roll?
Yes. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Andrews.
Aye.
Councilmember Lamnin.
Aye.
Councilmember Marquez.
Aye.
Councilmember Salinas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahab.
Yes.
Councilmember Cermeño.
Aye.
Mayor Halliday.
Yes. Those items pass unanimously with a 7-0 vote. And now we're ready to move on to our work session item this evening, which is item number 7 regarding the I-880 Whipple Road and I-880 Industrial Parkway Interchange Improvement Project. And I believe we'll start off with Mr. Ameri, correct?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. I'm going to start off and then introduce city staff and go from there. The purpose of this work session is to present project alternatives for the interchange improvement at Whipple and Industrial I-880 at those two interchanges. The purpose of this meeting, as I said, is to receive project alternatives, preferences from council. So the project team include, if you can share the PowerPoint, Jorge. Okay, thank you. The project team include myself, Alex Ameri, Director of Public Works. I also have Kathy Garcia, Deputy Director of Public Works with us. Jorge Simbakeba is the Senior Transportation Engineer and also Project Manager for this project. We're going to be hearing from him a little bit later on. And then Shabnam Yari is an Associate Transportation Engineer. We also have with us Joy Sharma, Director of Project Delivery with Alameda CTC. I'm going to turn the presentation over to her to introduce the other members of the team. Joy?
Thanks a lot, Alex. Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Today, I'm joined by our other team members, including Gary Sidhu, ACTC Project Manager, our technical design team from Mark Thomas, Sasha Densky, and James Pengburn. We are here tonight to talk about I-880 Whipple and Industrial Interchange Project, for which City is the sponsor, and ACTC is the lead implementing agency. We came to Council last year in June 2020 during draft environmental document development phase to discuss various alternatives which were evaluated at that time. With that, the draft environmental document was released early this year in January 2021, and public comment period was closed out in March 2021. We received several comments, and since then, team has been reviewing and addressing public comments for the final environmental document. Our objective tonight is to give you a status update of this project and also to go over the preferred alternative option for the project. And with that, I'll pass it on to Sasha Densky.
Thank you very much, Joy. And thank you, and I'm glad to be here this evening, Madam Mayor and Council, to provide you a project update. Given that we have come before you with this project several times in the past, I'm going to roll through the project setting and the alternatives, and then talk about some of the evaluation of the relative merits of the various alternatives as we've discovered through our work on the project. So on your screen, as long as I can get my, on your screen, you see the project setting. The project sits at the southern end of Hayward at the border with Union City, and Union City sits to the south of the project. The project actually encompasses both Union City and Hayward. However, both interchanges, the Whipple Road interchange to the south and the Industrial Parkway interchange to the north, sit within the incorporated boundaries of the city of Hayward. It's important to note that these interchanges serve the industrial core for Hayward and for Union City, and we have residential land uses to the north and residential land uses to the south, as well as the Union Landing shopping center. To go over why we're doing this project, here you see the project again and again. We've tilted the view, and with north leading to the right, and this is the industrial interchange, this is the Whipple interchange. So the problem and the challenge with this interchange is that within this area is that the Industrial Parkway interchange lacks a northbound off-ramp. In addition, the mainline highway configuration includes a fifth lane that comes on as what is known as an auxiliary lane at the Alvarado Niles interchange just to the south of Whipple. That lane continues past the Whipple interchange and then has a lane drop just to the south of the industrial interchange. The combination of these factors leads to congestion from the spillback from the bottleneck created by the lane drop, as well as because of the lack of a northbound off-ramp, all traffic wanting to get to this area along Whipple Road and Industrial needs to exit at Whipple, travel along Industrial Parkway West, and then get onto Industrial Parkway. So our solution to this project is to construct and complete the interchange at Industrial Parkway, thus allowing traffic that's destined for the industrial core as well as uses along Industrial Parkway to be able to more directly route that without having to wind their way through local roads. By doing this, it will unload the traffic demand at Whipple Road, and we will be able to better distribute traffic through the interchange. Also, we will reconfigure the main line in order to create a smoother transition of lanes so that that lane drop will be eliminated and in favor of having standard auxiliary lanes between the interchanges as are consistent with the other interchanges up and down the I-880 corridor. So the purpose of the project as defined is to modernize the interchanges, bring them up to current design standards in order to improve current and expected traffic operations and accessibility and mobility in the city of Hayward's industrial core. We will complete the partial interchange at Industrial Parkway West to provide access from northbound 880. And not least importantly, 880 currently serves as a barrier to non-motorized travel modes in this area. And so by improving these interchanges, we'll improve bicycle and pedestrian access through both the Industrial Parkway interchange as well as the Whipple Road interchange. So with that as a setting and a background, I'm going to quickly go through the alternatives that were included in the environmental document. So the alternative, we have 3 alternatives. And each alternative includes improvements at both Whipple Road as well as Industrial Parkway. We have 3 different interchange configurations at Industrial, and we have a build alternative and a design variation at Whipple. It's a little confusing, but it kind of gets into some of we call these because of CEQA and NEPA reasons. But I'm going to first walk you through the Whipple Road interchange. What's shown on your screen now is the base Whipple Road interchange, the build alternative. It includes modernization of the interchange, including squaring up of the ramps on each one of the legs, eliminating high-speed diagonal movements that create high-speed conflict points with pedestrians and bikes. And under this alternative, we would reconstruct the undercrossing structure for Whipple Road, thereby allowing us to widen Whipple Road and include more turn lanes and longer turn bays within the project limits. The design variation of this project is to preserve the existing undercrossing structures while making the same ramp and local road improvements that were shown on the build alternative. The primary differences with this is just that because we have not opened up the throat of Whipple Road with new structures, we are somewhat limited in terms of our ability to add additional lane capacity. However, as we'll discuss later, that from a traffic operations standpoint, this one, while it doesn't operate quite as well as the build alternative, it does operate acceptably in terms of its traffic operations. Switching to a cross-sectional view, this is the existing interchange. You can see that it's what we call a 3-span structure. It's actually multiple structures, but they're all 3-span structures where we have essentially 5 lanes of traffic and only a northbound 5-foot sidewalk that exists along the stretch underneath the bridges. There is no south side sidewalk and no dedicated bike lanes within this area. Under the build alternative, we would replace the structures, creating a much wider envelope. It would allow us to construct more turn lanes, longer left and right turn bays in order to sort out traffic. And it would allow us to construct buffered bike lanes and sidewalks on both sides of the interchange. Under the design variation, we would again retain the structures of the existing interchange, but what we would be able to do by constructing retaining walls on both sides, we would be able to construct 10-foot multi-use pathways, which would then be physically separated from traffic both horizontally and vertically underneath the interchange behind each abutment. Moving on to the Industrial Parkway interchange, we have three alternatives. The first alternative is shown here, which is known as a tight diamond interchange. Before I start talking about the nuances of this interchange, I'd like to point out that in the northbound direction, that each interchange is essentially identical. The northbound ramps include a new northbound off-ramp from northbound 880. It includes the reconstruction of the Industrial Parkway overcrossing and the realignment of the northbound on-ramp to intersect opposite the ramp, thus creating a more standard ramp configuration at the interchange. In order to construct the new northbound off-ramp, the project is required to realign about 1,000 feet of Ward Creek in order to provide maintenance for Alameda County flood control, as they need to maintain Ward Creek, which is primarily a flood control facility. This interchange, as I mentioned, is a tight diamond interchange. It includes a new and realigned southbound off-ramp and a complementary southbound on-ramp. This interchange operates acceptably in its configuration, but it should be noted that this alignment, because we have to come in nearly perpendicular to Industrial Parkway, results in a fairly significant right-of-way impact to this logistics site in the southwest quadrant of the interchange. Let's see, I think that pretty well covers alternative one. Moving on to alternative two. Again, northbound ramp configuration is identical between the interchanges. Under alternative two, we'd be constructing what is known as a partial cloverleaf type L9. And what this has is it includes a diagonal off-ramp, a loop on-ramp, and a complementary diagonal on-ramp, so that the loop on-ramp serves westbound industrial traffic to the south, and the diagonal on-ramp serves eastbound traffic. This interchange type is the highest capacity of any of the interchange types that we've studied. It has the best traffic operations. However, in order to minimize right-of-way impacts to the logistics site here, we, through our value engineering process, included what a diagonal on-ramp, and what this low angle diverge configuration creates is the potential for a high-speed conflict point with peds and bikes at this location. This alternative also has property impacts not only to the logistics site here, but also to this light industrial property in the northwest quadrant. The off-ramp and the widening and the accommodation of additional lanes requires that we would acquire and demolish this building that you can see my cursor on top of. In addition, this alternative requires the most mainline widening because of the successive on-ramps and the need for some distance for cars to be able to sort their way into the traffic before the next set of cars comes on to the main line. We have to extend the widening further to the south, shortening the distance for the weaving to take place between Industrial and Whipple to the south. Moving on to alternative three. This is, again, northbound off-ramps the same. And in the southbound direction, what we've done is to preserve but modernize the existing interchange form. So this would include a new realigned diagonal off-ramp with expanded turn lanes and storage. It would also include a new loop on-ramp with an increased radius in order to better accommodate the trucks, as well as additional lanes, so you would have two mixed flow and an HOV bypass lane on the on-ramp. This, as you can see, more impact on those buildings. However, it has a net same impact as alternative 2. We have to demolish those buildings in order to construct these improvements. And it has a very minor impact on this logistics site property. Another important distinction with this alternative is that it has no right turn conflict points along the south side of the interchange because it, instead of having either a diagonal on-ramp here or a diagonal in either case, traffic wanting to go to the south from eastbound industrial would make a left onto the loop ramp. Thus, we have, from a ped and bike access standpoint, a continuous shot, and the only conflict point is from exiting traffic, which is far safer for peds and bikes traveling along this corridor. Looking at the cross-sectional view, this is the existing industrial parkway overcrossing. We will be replacing this structure, but the existing structure, as you can see, has no bike and ped facility, no bike facilities, and only 5-foot sidewalks on either side. We will be constructing a brand new overcrossing under all 3 alternatives, and with that, we can provide adequate adequate space for both through lanes and turn lanes, as well as to provide room for either combinations of buffered bike lanes with sidewalks or with multi-use pathways along each side. So with those 3 alternatives and the design variation at Whipple, we have considered how to evaluate these alternatives. And we've considered 6 primary factors: cost, traffic operations, bicycle and pedestrian access, right-of-way impacts, construction impacts and construction staging, and safety. Now, we have weighted these criteria. We've applied weighting factors. We feel that cost, right-of-way impact, traffic operations, and safety are all relatively equivalent factors. We have used a lower weighting factor for constructability and staging, as while they are important factors and add into the cost of the project and the impact to people, they're a temporal impact, and therefore we rank those lower. And finally, bike and pedestrian comfort, really as a matter of the amount of stakeholder involvement, as well as the comments received during the environmental review process, we've weighted the bike and pedestrian comfort as the most important factor as we've weighed these various alternatives. In terms of our evaluation of these alternatives, we'll start here at Whipple Road. So in terms of cost, the difference between the design variation and the build alternative, so Alt 1 is the build alternative, this is the design variation. The difference in those costs is approximately $30 million to replace the overcrossing structures. And so obviously the design variation is ranked much higher than the build alternative. In terms of right-of-way impacts, because the ramp configurations are essentially the same, the right-of-way impacts are identical between the 2 alternatives. From an operations standpoint, we have slightly improved operations for the build alternative, thus we've ranked it a 5 instead of a 4. Constructability and staging, a distinct benefit for the design variation, as we don't need to maintain and construct bridges that have to carry, while we're building them, more than 10 lanes of traffic. And so that has a distinct advantage. In terms of bike and pedestrian comfort, while the widening of the structures provides us with more room, and we've ranked that a little bit higher, we had some internal discussions because with the design variation with the existing 3 span bridges and the columns, the pedestrian and bicycle facilities through underneath those bridges, while not as open and airy, are physically separated from the traffic. And so despite that, we did rank it a 4 versus the 3, but I think that's a bit of a toss-up. And then safety-wise, we think that these interchanges will operate, because the ramp configurations are essentially the same, they will operate fairly similarly. When you add all those up and you apply your weighting factors, the highest ranking of the 2 alternative is the design variation to maintain the 2 structures. Moving to the industrial interchange, I'll try to move through this and keep everyone's attention here. In terms of cost, alternative 2 is the most expensive, as it requires more widening along the main line, as well as 2 ramps. It is the most expensive. The least expensive is alternative 1, and alternative 3 is the middle of the road. And so we have applied scores 5, 3, and 4 therefore. In terms of right-of-way impacts, alternative 2 has impacts to both the northwest and the southwest quadrant. We've ranked that as the lowest. Alternative 1 has a major impact on the operations of the logistics site. And alternative 3, while it does take out those buildings, its impacts are concentrated in that one location, and we've ranked that the highest. From an operations standpoint, as I discussed in the 3 alternatives, alternative 2 does have the best traffic operations. Alternative 3 and 1 are similar, but alternative 3 is slightly better than alternative 2. Thus, we provided those rankings. From a bicycle and pedestrian comfort standpoint, we evaluated these based upon conflict points. And as I discussed, alternative 3 has the least amount of pedestrian and bicycle conflict points. We ranked that the highest. Alternative 2 has conflict points on both directions, and alternative 2 has the high speed diagonal conflict point. So therefore, we've ranked that one the lowest. And finally, from a safety standpoint, couple factors went into this. One is the bike ped comfort safety that we discussed, as well as because when we thought about it in terms of the main line, the alternatives that have the diagonal on-ramps push those on-ramps further to the south, thus reducing the amount of weaving space between the industrial ramp and the Whipple ramp. Whereas and also with alternative 2, you introduce an additional conflict point for the 2 successive on-ramps coming into the main line. Whereas alternative 3, that ramp is pushed further to the north and has the greatest amount of distance. We've ranked that the highest of the 3. When we apply our weighting factors, we come up with a recommendation for alternative 3 as having the highest ranking of those 3 interchanges. Moving to the project schedule, recapping a little bit of what Joy talked about. We completed the PSR in August of 2018. We held a scoping meeting in January of 2019. We circulated our environmental document between January and March earlier this year. And pending the identification of a preferred alternative and documentation thereof, we anticipate completing the PAD process this fall. And then pending funding and the ability to move forward on final design, we anticipate that beginning shortly thereafter the completion of the PAD. Construction, we would expect to begin about 2.5 years after we begin detailed design, with construction taking approximately 3 seasons. And with that, I will turn it over to Jorge.
Thank you, Sasha. Good afternoon, good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. This is Jorge Simpacaba, Senior Transportation Engineer and Department of Public Works. Taking all of the evaluation criteria into consideration, staff recommends build alternative 3 with the design variation. Historically, the biggest barrier to biking and walking from the east side of Hayward to the west side has always been I-880 and the lack of safe and comfortable pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So this combination, and that is a perspective that we're taking into it when we look at the proposed alternatives. And the combination of improvements of build alternative 3 and the design variation not only meet the purpose and need of the project, but it is also superior for non-motorized users when compared to the other alternatives, as Sasha pointed out. And I wanted to highlight that at the Whipple Road interchange, the proposed facility, as you can see on the bottom left in the cross section, pedestrians and bicyclists will be sharing a wide shared use path that's physically separated both horizontally and vertically it'll be separate from the grid of the road, and the existing bridge columns will provide that physical barrier, making it more comfortable and appealing for less experienced bicycle riders as well as for pedestrians. This space underneath the bridge abutments will also have potential for being utilized for community art displays and can also include state-of-the-art lighting for safety purposes. Those are details that can be discussed further in the design process and finalized at that point. For the Industrial Parkway interchange, bicycles and pedestrians will also have a superior advantage there because there's no right turn conflicts, as Sasha mentioned, in the eastbound direction within the entire limits of the interchange. Meanwhile, in the westbound direction, the proposed right turn radii have been minimized, which create 90-degree corners that help to minimize those conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians and bicyclists. Again, with the new structure that's being replaced over 880, there's opportunity for decorative bridge railing and community art installations as well. Design details that can be further refined along the process of the project. Next slide, please. So staff requests that council open and receive public comments on these staff recommendations for a preferred alternative. We would like to hear council's feedback on these alternatives and the recommendation from staff. And we would like to have a selected alternative that staff can present to Alameda CTC and Caltrans for selection of a preferred alternative to progress in the final environmental document. Next slide, please. And now we'll turn it over to questions.
Okay, first, this is a work session, and are you actually, I mean, when you say you want our comments and that the final decision, it will be presented to ACTC and Caltrans, so you're not actually asking for a vote tonight on an alternative, but rather just comments from us?
We're asking for feedback on the recommended preferred alternative that staff is recommending.
Okay. All right. So with that, I'm going to go first, because this is a work session. Before we have any council questions or comments, I'm going to go to an open public comments on this item. And I do think we have at least one. So Madam City Clerk, are you ready to open the public comment? And it looks like the first hand is from Kim Huggett.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the council. Kim Huggett, President and CEO of the Hayward Chamber of Commerce. We've been engaged in this project for years. And it's still kind of interesting to me that the evaluation criteria doesn't list what's most important to us, which is economic development, which is the critical element to our members in this area. It was hard for me to pick which chamber members to highlight with the universal priority to build that northbound off-ramp on industrial. I'm not sure that there's even a preference as long as we get that off-ramp built. Companies like San Francisco Manheim, which sells 1,500 cars at auction every Wednesday, but if you're coming from the South Bay, you have to fight your way through Whipple. California Hydronics, which made all of the boilers for Levi's Stadium where the 49ers play and Chase Arena where the Warriors play. All those parts have to come off trucks coming down Tennyson or off of Whipple. Costco Wholesale, all their deliveries from the South Bay, they have to fight their way through that Whipple interchange. Falk Ambulance, the major ambulance provider for the county, if they come off a shift in Fremont, they have to add another half hour to 45 minutes just to get back to the headquarters. And then finally, Roadstar Trucking, one of Hayward's most important logistics companies, whose help was critical in getting that Huntwood Avenue lane reduction proposal turned back. A northbound off-ramp, even though this is years away, is going to pull big rigs off of that Whipple interchange and make access to the business park much more easy. So I would say that for the Chamber of Commerce, the business community, there's no real preference on the industrial alternatives except to get it built. I'll just finish with one anecdote. One of the sessions that we went to, we had members of the community speak, and one of them came up to me and he said, the reason there's no northbound off-ramp there is because when we built the freeway, nobody ever thought that they would be driving to the South Bay for anything. And so they would have no reason to come back. So we're kind of making up for that now. And it will be a great amenity to have that access, and will help stimulate the Huntwood Business Park and the companies on the other side of the freeway as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Patrick.
Hi. I am loving all of the proposals. The industrial, I've been a Hayward resident my entire life, and to see industrial finally get an off-ramp to Northtown, it's going to alleviate hundreds of accidents per year that don't get reported on Whipple. And like the gentleman just spoke, the Chamber of Commerce, getting the truck traffic off of Whipple will make it safer for pedestrians. And this is the time to definitely add bike lanes and pedestrian lanes. And I think it's good. It'd be nice to live in this area to have less trucks getting off the Tennyson Road and to be able to get in industrial easily. I would like to see as few buildings destroyed as possible. If XPO Logistics will relinquish their land cheaper than the off-ramp from southbound for having acknowledged those buildings, I think is about the only change I would like to see for that one, so that we don't have to take out buildings.
Okay, thank you. And next, Steve Dunbar.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Mike?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you. Good evening, council members. And before I get too far, thanks for answering my earlier email as well. I appreciate staff's response on that. I gave you a lot of tough questions in my emails. I sent another one kind of late, and I'm sorry that it kind of came late. So I'll try to recap it. I asked a bunch of tough questions, but the first thing is, in terms of the designs that you have in front of you, we generally, Bikey's Bay backs me up on this particular thing, but I'm speaking for myself here tonight. Approve of the staff recommendation in terms of the designs. The designs that were proposed are safe and fairly cost effective for what they are. The alternative 3 and the design variation makes sense. Most of these will be quite safe. I did want to say that we're still kind of in the process with working with the traffic engineers and everyone, not so much about the cross sections in particular, but the details at the intersections still needed some work the last time we checked in, but I know it's kind of still going through the phases. So I'm not really too worried about that here. Towards the end of my email, I talked a little bit more generally about priorities, and I'm not here to block the off-ramp for industrial. I think that also makes sense, actually. Frankly, I know, I've driven in that traffic before myself. But I just wanted to put it in the context of the goals that you have set for yourself for vehicle miles traveled and climate action, which I know is a huge goal for the city. I've watched it. I remember Al Mendel at the Sustainability Committee meetings. So I wanted to offer that context of how much this costs relative to all the things we're doing in town, because this is a lot of money. And so if we can value engineer it in some way where we still get the off-ramps and we still get the safety protection, but we don't, get every single level of service point that we possibly can, because that kind of is in indirect conflict with your goals. If we're expecting a 45% increase in car traffic, then we have not met the climate action plan goal of reducing VMT by a certain amount to meet our climate action plan. So I don't have a way forward for that here tonight because this is just about the design. So I wanted to offer that context, but in terms of the designs here and before you tonight, I believe that the staff recommendation makes sense. So thanks for your time.
Thank you for your comments. I'm not seeing any other hands raised from attendees. So I'm going to close public comment and go to council for questions and comments and direction to staff. And we'll go to Council Member Salinas first.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll go to the big obvious question. So who pays for this? Where does the money? Where's it come from? And if you can explain that, that'd be great.
All right, I'll take that question. So this is Joy, ACTC. So city is the sponsor for the project, and we'll be working with city staff as we are moving forward in the next phase, which will be PSNE phase in a few months after PAED, to prepare a funding plan and to come up with the programming for the project, which could be various funding sources, local, state, or federal. So a programming team would be working with the city to develop a funding plan to close the funding gap that we all know exists in this project as of now.
And that 35 million was the gap. That's what we're trying to fill.
It's close to $100 million.
Oh, 100. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's more than 30 million. Okay. So the other is, so what are the prospects? I mean, is it pretty, so let's say we went with alternative 3 with the design variations, what are the possibilities or the prospects of us filling that $100 million gap?
So yes, so alternative 3 with design variation leaves $100 million gap, and which is the best cost-effective alternative, as we all saw in the presentation. That's one of the factors. However, we cannot say anything tonight. It's we're going to go through the PSNE phase, which I think is like 1.5-year process, Sasha, or 2-year process.
Probably closer to construction, 2.5 years.
2.5 years. And we have funds for the PSNE phase. So we have enough funds to survive another 2.5 years and go through it. And by then, we are hopeful that we will come up with some funding plan along with the city staff and fund this program, because yes, we all are looking forward to get this project built. Yeah.
So is there an expectation that the city will contribute financing to this project?
The city is the sponsor, so the funding plan should be developed in conjunction with city and ACTC. So I'm not saying that city is providing $100 million for the funds, but yes, the funding plan and programming scheme should be developed in conjunction with the city staff.
Okay. Then the other question, and I wanted to just acknowledge Mr. Huggett's comments about looking at the criteria, and he's right. It did not include economic development, and so I hope when this comes back to us that we do look at some what are the impacts to the industries and companies in the industrial area, and how will it help them? I mean, I think that would be that would be a fruitful exercise to look at the implications on businesses. Have businesses looked at this proposal?
So we had extensive stakeholder outreach throughout the entire process. We had focused outreach during the PID phase, where we actually met with a number of the property owners and talked with them about the plans to understand. And it informed then, we then had targeted outreach as well as part of our community impact analysis during the environmental documentation phase. I fully appreciate the comments and the need, and in many ways, what underlies a lot of this is, we talked about the industrial core, and that's one of the purposes of the project, to support and enhance that industrial core that the city has. The one reason I think we didn't look at that and didn't state that as one of the alternatives or one of the evaluation criteria is because the northbound off-ramps are identical in all 3 alternatives. I think, to the speaker's point, as long as we get the off-ramp, that's kind of what we need. Each one of the alternatives has that off ramp, and then in some ways we're sort of splitting hairs from there, because getting that off ramp is really the critical piece, and it's a difficult off ramp to build for a lot of reasons. But with the configuration we have, we can build, And once that's in, there's not a whole lot of differentiation between the other ones in terms of its economic impact, at least in the way that we've looked at it and evaluated it to this point.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I'm thinking, the southbound industrial off ramp, you're going to take out 3 buildings, right? And so, what would be the impact? I mean, I don't know what's in those 3 buildings. Do you know what's in those? Do you know what companies in those 3 buildings?
I don't remember the names of the specific companies. They were light industrial uses.
Okay. And will those, will Caltrans or the city? I mean, so how does the acquisition of that land occur? Is it through? Do we offer the property owner to buy the buildings, or how does that work?
Unless Gary wants to jump in, I can talk a little bit about it at a high level in terms of acquisition, in terms of these types of projects. Property owners would, there would be a fair value appraisal of those properties that would be done once we're not close enough yet. Once we have the environmental document, we will then define in a much more granular way the exact amount of area that we would need to be able to build our improvements, and then the land that was ultimately needed. So there's sort of 2 pieces to it, a temporary and a permanent. That land and the value of that land would then be appraised against fair market value, and a right-of-way acquisition process would be undertaken for those properties with the intent that you reach a negotiated sale of the properties. And for occupied properties, it also includes relocation costs. So for businesses, relocation of the business into another suitable, compatible type of a use. If it's in this case, we don't have any residential acquisitions, and so that we don't have that. But in the process, you have a similar type of a process. So in my experience, property owners are fairly well compensated, very well compensated for the effect of the public coming in and taking their properties for the building of a public infrastructure improvement.
Okay, so let me just now. I want to see if I can really just narrow my comments down, and so I can be quick about this. So I want to make 3 points. The first point is, I believe the last time this came to us, I made comments around, these are our gateways, right? Whipple, industrial, and even farther up, Southland, right? These are major gateway areas into our city. And this one, industrial Whipple, right, are big major industrial gateways. And so, I want to say that and say that for me, the visual presence of these on ramps, off ramps, I mean, they have to be absolutely stellar. And I know we didn't look at designs, and I know you're just sort of, you gave us the designs, but not necessarily what exactly they're going to look like and all that. And I get all that. As you go deeper into your design work, please take into consideration that these are major industrial gateways. These are the first thing that people see coming into our city, and when they leave, this is what's going to drive them to come back, right? The other point I want to make is, design. What was it? The alternative 3, design 3, with the design variations. I mean, of course, I mean, the most expensive, the most, the better looking, the most expensive, if that will give us the presence of our gateway and into our industrial sectors, I'm all for that. I'm very optimistic about the financing. Ms. Sharma, you looked pretty optimistic when you said, the financing plan. So, I'll trust you about the financing, but, so anyway, so there's, if you're asking my opinion about the design, I think the alternative 3, I think it favors pedestrian, it favors, bicycling, and And I just want to make this last comment that I think our former council member Al Mendel made. It might have even been Council Member Cermeño, and I apologize if I bring this up, Cermeño, and you were going to bring it up too, is the height of the wall. I don't know what the wall is going to look like coming over Industrial, but I know right now that wall is very low. So when you're coming, when you're crossing that overpass, I know there's a fence, but it's just visually walking across that overpass. It's it's quite an experience. And then lastly is the wall between, on the Whipple underpass, that, I don't know what it's going to look like, but, like I said, it's got to be stellar and well lit, safe, easily clean. I mean, that we can clean it and it can be cleaned and maintained. And I think, and so those are some of the things I'll be looking for, but, and so I appreciate it. Thank you. That's it.
All right. Thank you. Councilmember Cermeño.
Thank you to colleague Salinas for some of the points that I was going to bring up. So I will keep, I only have 3 items of sorts. One, and it's just kind of repeat of what I stated last time we went through this. We want to make sure that there's ample lighting underneath the underpasses because if right now it's pretty dark on Whipple. I want to make sure that the ugly chain link fence does not appear up on the overpass. If you'd like to see something nice looking, go over to San Leandro. They have some real nice ones. As was stated by colleague Salinas, this is gateway into our city. So if you have ugly chain link fence, which is what's there at Tennyson Road, it's a damper. And there really is nothing to dislike about this particular project, as was stated by also Kim Huggett. I like everything about it, the safety features. I like the fact that we're going to go now directly into Industrial Park, the Industrial Parkway from the south. So I'm 100% behind it. Our alternative 3 is the one that I favor. And I believe that there will be funds that in order to carry this forward. And then, of course, my only problem is I have to wait till 2027 to see it to fruition. But c'est la vie. So please, thank you for the report, everybody, and let's go with it. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Lamnon.
Thank you for the work on this. Thank you, Mayor. Yes, thank you for the work on this. I do support staff recommendations. I also support the points made by Councilmember Salinas and Cermeño. And I know Councilmember Marquez has made this point in the past as well regarding lighting and then our gateways and, of course, the fencing and so on. So I really appreciate all those comments that my colleagues have made tonight and in the past. And then lastly, I also wanted to appreciate Mr. Dunbar's comments around challenging our thinking going forward. Not to derail this project, but going forward. And I so appreciate the mayor's work on ACTC and really championing Hayward in transportation and pushing on green. Councilmember Mendel pushing on green as well as our city staff. And this idea that, what if we're flipping the model about not always making it easier, making less traffic. There's environmental impacts to reducing idling times too. So I realize totally that it's a balance act, and it's why I also concur that we don't derail this project and the staff recommendations as made. It's just an interesting part of the conversation. And I too am not entirely sure where it fits yet, but I appreciated the comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wahab.
Thank you. Again, I appreciate the, staff presentation, and these are always interesting because I always want to see how it eventually looks. So thank you for that. I think for me, this particular area, I want to highlight Kim Huggett's comments, and particularly this area. So I just want to add his comments into what I'm going to say. The thing about it is that there are, a lot of movement in this area, number one. Number two, I do want to just highlight that it does seem, I want to highlight some safety around this area in particular, and also just lighting. I think lighting throughout our certain parts of Hayward is like a big problem for me, at least. I think I've mentioned in the past, like throughout Tennyson, throughout South Hayward Industrial, it becomes way too dark. And I know that's not the priority here, but, I think whatever we can do. Cleanliness is also another big thing. I think that the current models that we have to challenge your thinking, as was mentioned, doesn't seem to negate any debris, piling up, things like that. So whatever we can do over there. And then also, I am very much interested in a quick in and out for folks. I think sometimes we think that something will work and it ends up being like a very long line to get in and out of the city. And I want to just make sure that we don't have a problem with that. So, I just want to stress the priority of being able to move in and out, especially as people are going to work and coming from work and so forth. So those are my priority areas that I'd like for us to kind of focus on before anything else. And then to Mr. Dunbar's comments and emails, I'm sure you guys have received it, so I did not highlight it, but I do want us to kind of think outside of the box. It's very similar to, some of the comments I've made regarding Winton and so forth. So I think our focus should be around that. And I think Director Amiri is familiar with some of the previous comments I've had. So I'll keep it short, but thank you for explaining exactly what's going to happen. And I look forward to it.
And Councilmember Wahab, are you basically agreeing with the staff recommendation on what to, take on to Caltrans? And
yes, and then with highlighting a couple of the points. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Great. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. And I agree with staff recommendations. And I'm so happy you mentioned public art in the presentation. And I would also like to highlight on lighting and using lighting for public art. I mean, we are going to be celebrating Pride Month all month long in June. It would be great to have a light installation that could reflect that celebration, and we can use it as opportunities to celebrate other things throughout the year. It could also attract more pedestrians to go and use the underpass. And just think it would be a great idea if we can consider those as opportunities. And it also could deter graffiti. So please consider that. And then I also made a lot of comments related to public art during the Winton presentation. So I encourage you to go back and ask staff to find that presentation, to find the recommendations or the meeting minutes. And then you can see some of the things that my other colleagues have highlighted as well, because they're definitely similar to today's presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. And Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I want to thank staff for the presentation. I appreciate this coming back to us and all the great community outreach. I did have a question in regard to the DED. I believe the window period has closed for comments. Does staff intend to respond to every comment? I've seen that done in the past, so just curious what the response rate is going to be for those that have submitted comments.
So we've received all the comments. We will respond to all the comments received as part of, and technically, again, this is sort of the nuance here, that it's technically a Caltrans environmental document. So every one of the comments will be responded to, as is consistent with the, I guess, in some cases, if comments are more or less identical, they will just respond to those in one time. But all substantive comments will be responded to in the final ED that will be adopted and certified.
Okay, great. And then I believe in the staff report there was mention that potential federal stimulus money for infrastructure projects. So staff will be looking at that as a funding source as well.
Yeah.
Yes. As Joy mentioned, when we do get to the phase of developing the funding plan, staff will be seeking to grants and other funding sources from federal and state budgets and grants for the project.
Okay, great. Definitely in support of staff's recommendations. I think it was very fair in terms of aesthetics, access, pedestrian bike safety. There was a lot of factors taken into consideration. So I'm in support of the recommendation. I do want to ask if staff can work with our economic development team. If any businesses are going to be displaced, if we could work really hard to find an alternative location, preferably in Hayward, so we don't lose those businesses. So if we could work hard at that. And then based off the report, my understanding is the City of Union City is also in support of staff's recommendations.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, great. And then I was looking at our website. I just kind of did a Google search for this information. I found the information really accessible for the meeting in February, and then you could click on like ACTC for project updates, but just ask that moving forward, we have the information readily available on our website. And if there's any way we could add past meetings, the video, if people are just interested in kind of like the chronological events of this project unfolding, just so it's easy for everyone to access. And we'll just echo the comments about art, lighting, and the gateway. Our consent item earlier, the medians, you could already see improvements in our community with the landscape being done there, mission phase 1, 2, and 3. So if we could just keep that momentum going, I think overall our community will benefit from that. So thank you.
From Bradley. Okay, sorry about that. The Zoom era where you hear the phones ringing in the background since we're at home, but sorry about that. Thank you all for your comments, and I too agree with staff's recommendations and a lot of the comments that were made. First of all, as the representative for Hayward to the ACTC board, especially thank you, Ms. Sharma, for being here. And the thing is, this project is and has been on a general comprehensive investment document. Or it's called something like that, but it's a big document about all of the projects in the counties and the funding and the stages of the funding. And once you're on it, you generally keep going. Like, we're not going to invest a whole bunch of money at this level and then not move forward with it. But those tax revenues are yet to have come in, I think, in the future years, but we can expect them. Also, that big money from the federal government, that infrastructure bill that has been talked about a lot, but I think still isn't approved. But it's some sort of bill is coming someday, and both parties do seem to agree that roads are infrastructure. So I think that's one potential source, and state money too. But it's just that this is going to take several years, but once you're in the pipeline, generally there's not difficulty getting continuing to get the project funded when investments have already been made. I think, clearly the value we're getting out of this is the off ramps from 880 onto industrial that we don't have now. And I really, actually, Mr. Dansky, I just really appreciated your walking us through all that. I stared at some of those drawings. I always stare at these drawings, like trying to figure out, okay, if I'm driving here, how am I going to do this or that? And they were very, very tiny arrows on the screen as I was looking at them, but thanks for walking us through all that. It does bring us that plus the bike and pedestrian and other safety elements that we don't have now. I very much want to see as much attention as possible given to the visual aspects and adding, and we can be really creative about the public art. I think that the lighting idea that Councilmember Andrews just had is very, very interesting to me. So I don't know if that's, people are doing all kinds of things with laser and stuff like that. So that's an interesting idea. It was a trip a little over a year ago, just before we went into shutdown. My husband and I took a trip to Arizona, and I really noticed the interesting art on some of the highways there. And it very much reflects the geography, I think, of Arizona, which is certainly not our geography here. But, I'm thinking of the Bay, maybe some connection to the Bay in terms of the art. But there's a lot that could be done, and I really like the idea, and I do think it does a lot. And especially as Councilmember Salinas especially was noting that it was this is a gateway. So whatever we can do along those lines. And then finally, Mr. Dunbar's comments. It's like, when are we going to stop, adding to our road capacity when we're trying to cut down on vehicle traffic and get people to do other things? But however, this project, it brings some of those benefits right now. I think because it does very much serve our industrial area, and that is still going to be served by trucks. Hopefully in the future, more and more of those trucks will be run not on gasoline, but on more carbon-free energy sources. But I think we do need this for them there, and that it will help. It will help our businesses down in that area. So, with that, do you have what you need? Do you think, our staff people who are here and our visitors?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we believe we have everything we need.
I think we all agreed with the staff recommendations, so that was pretty easy. And okay, thank you everybody for the comments, and we don't need to even take a note on this. A vote on this item. So that moves us, as I had said earlier, item number 8, the public hearing on the Amazon facility has been removed from this agenda and continued to a date uncertain at the request of the applicant. So we will not be discussing that tonight. So that brings us to comments from our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just one kind of quick positive note. In the month of April, Environmental Services Division and Maintenance Services partnered with the Keep Hayward Clean and Green Task Force. And because we are not doing cleanups, they created a unique program where they delivered litter pickup care packages to people's homes so that they could do their own pickup in their neighborhood. I have made my daughter do that in our neighborhood a couple times. She loves me for it, as teenagers would want to do. And so throughout the month of Earth Day, so 42 households registered for care packages and about 139 people participated. So just wanted to share that really cool statistic and thank our Hayward residents for partnering with us to clean up our community. So that's the only announcement I had this evening. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much for that. And please, thank you for everybody who participated in that. And so let's see, Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you for that, City Manager. That's a great update. And also, I wanted to thank Councilmember Marquez, who adopted a block this week. So I wanted to give a shout out for that. And all the other council members, I'm not sure who all has one, but thank you for adopting. And to everyone else out there, please do so. Thanks.
I can tell you someone who adopted, I don't know how many, 11 or 22 or something like that blocks. And that is the Hayward, the Raising Leaders program run by Davita Scott at the Hayward Adult School. And some of us were out there taking pictures with her and some of her colleagues and some of our city staff, featuring the signs that have been put up in a number of places, especially in South Hayward, I think, where she and her team, and ultimately the students, once they're back in attending real time, will be taking care of a number of blocks in Hayward. So thanks very much to them.
And Councilmember Andrews, I think, and I would stand corrected, but I think I'm the only one that has a sign that says keeping it neat to the street.
That's very clever. Very clever. I
I
like
don't know who came up with that tagline, but it's good.
We could make it a city slogan, really, but pass it on, Councilmember Andrews. You're our liaison to the Keep Hayward Clean and Green Task Force. Councilmember Marquez.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry, but my dryer is pretty loud. You guys can probably hear it, so I apologize. Always bad timing. So I just wanted to see if the city manager would be open to collaborating with the Department of Public Health. My understanding is vaccination rates are pretty low in South Hayward, specifically 94544, and we know that test positive cases are a bit high in that area. So if we could just collaborate with our partners. I know that Rusio Vasquez is administering vaccinations at our firehouse clinic. Glad Tidings has been an amazing partner, La Familia, but if there's a way that we could just coordinate efforts and get that information out to the public, encouraging them to educate themselves, reach out to council members, any member of the public that they trust, faith-based leaders, to encourage them to consider getting vaccinated. So if we could please work on that. Also just wanted to acknowledge that today is the 1-year anniversary of George Floyd's murder. So just wanted us, if we could please, before closing the meeting, just have a moment of silence in honor of his memory. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Councilmember Andrews.
Thank you, Mayor. I was also going to acknowledge that, and in conjunction with thanking staff and all the community members who are helping out plan Juneteenth. I think in light of George Floyd's murder, people are recognizing that as a really important day for America. So I would just want to thank all of city staff, Diane Castleberry, Mark Williams, Artavia Berry, and Dorothy Dominguez for really helping and stepping in. And I'm sure there's going to be more partners that I needed to thank, but they've really been helping out this week. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Salinas.
Yeah, I wanted to just follow up on what Councilmember Marquez just said. I was in a meeting with one of the Alameda County Public Health nurses, and it was my understanding she did this great presentation that the 94544 is we're actually leading the county in vaccinating, and that's been a data point that I know that like the Hayward Promise neighborhood has been working around. So I just wanted to maybe we get clarity as to where that is, because you're the second person I heard that mentioned that. One person mentioned a report from NPR, and which is quite interesting. But anyways, not to contradict you, but I just I wanted to perhaps we get clarity on the rates.
We can provide some information. I think the health department's website has that data. I know the fire chief has been working very closely with leaders throughout the community. I know he had just mentioned that there will be a clinic opening at Palmacia Baptist Church this weekend. La Familia is doing vaccinations both in Cherryland and at the Sky West site. So there are multiple opportunities. I would encourage all council members there's a lot of social media resources on the public health department's website. The more that they can see trusted leaders, that our community can see trusted leaders encouraging vaccination, that would be really, really important in terms of sort of uptick and increasing vaccination rates. So just encouraging something, and I'm getting text as we're speaking. So apparently we will get corrected data. Apparently there was some incorrect data in that NPR report. And so our rates are better than what that report indicated. So, but still, there's still work to do in terms of getting our community fully vaccinated. So more publicity in PR is not a bad thing. So I will get that information and we'll share it with the council on the sort of updated vaccination rates.
And there is a push, just to follow up real quick. The big need right now is families. It's families with small children or with young teens. And that is a big need.
12 and older still, right? 12 and older.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Wahab?
Thank you. I just wanted to add, City Manager, if I know I saw the article about the 12 to I want to say 15-year-old folks getting vaccinated in Hayward. If we can just push that for a little bit while longer also on social media, just to where they can go, how they can sign up, things like that, just to make it easier. People tend to share. And then whatever link we have, if that makes a difference. Also, if they can just show up. Right, because some people kind of don't like planning, like to show up. So as much as possible, just try and help different community members and so forth. So thank you.
Yeah, I saw some of that coverage too and was really puzzled because I know there have been enormous efforts in South Hayward, both at our firehouse clinic by Tiburcio and at GHAD Tidings. And these have been going on for a while. And so I'm glad. I look forward to getting the updated, correct information out there. So with that, are there any other council member reports or announcements? With that, yes, today marked a significant anniversary in our country, the first anniversary of the death of George Floyd, which, as horrible as it is that happened, certainly sparked throughout this country a much needed look at how police services are provided and how sometimes certain minorities or groups of people are treated differently, and we need to get beyond that. We need to get beyond the discrimination and racism in this country that has led to those discrepancies in treatment. And for we do have George Floyd to thank for the sacrifice of his life. I think is leading to a lot of good work throughout our entire country, including right here in Hayward. We saw a number of policy recommendations made come forward last week to look at how we do policing here in Hayward. And, those kinds of discussions are occurring through in all of the cities in the Bay Area, I know, and in our counties. And so, but we should always remember, and not that he is the only one or was the first one, but I do think something about that death a year ago opened a lot of eyes and hearts and kind of changed the conversation for the better, even though it was a very tragic event. So with that, let us have a moment of silence now as we remember George Floyd and the year past. Thank you, Paul. And finally, we are adjourning this meeting tonight in memory of Jay Mahler. And Jay Mahler was raised in Hayward, and he made a great contribution to the in the area of mental health treatment in his life. And I did not know Mr. Mahler personally, and the news of his passing was brought to us by one of our former planning commissioners, Rodney Lachey. But in reading about him, it just really strikes me how sad and poignant it is that he would pass away right now. He is someone, we talk about lived experience, and he is someone who did have the lived experience of having mental health problems, and he, in fact, spent over a decade in mental health treatment. And as a result of that, subsequently dedicated his life to being a true activist and pioneer in the consumer, survivor, and peer movement. He, just among the things that he did, he was the first consumer relations manager in Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services from 2006 to 2012. He founded the Pool of Consumer Champions in 2006. He was appointed by the governor at the time to the California Council on Mental Health from 1979 to 1985. He served on that. He's been a member of the California State Mental Health Planning Council, had been since 1990, and formerly served as co-chair, and many other local boards, including the Alameda County Mental Health Advisory Board, the Fairmont Hospital Advisory Board, and Eden District Mental Health Committee. And after his retirement from the Alameda County Behavioral Health Care Services Department, the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, in recognition of the work he had done, approved a new building to be named after him. And so in 2015, the J. Mahler Recovery Center in San Leandro opened and offered what Jay envisioned to be a benefit for people experiencing mental health crises, a home-like voluntary setting that promoted peer-to-peer support and mental health wellness services. So I think about the loss of this man at this time when we are all really grappling with the issues of how we improve our treatment, our mental health treatment services in our area and throughout our country and world, really. And to lose someone like this at this time is very sad. However, I think, as Mr. Lachey put it, his message to keep hope alive and keep working to help transform our system to a wellness, resiliency, and recovery-focused system will continue to inspire us well into the future. And so, in memory of Jay Mahler, and I would ask staff maybe reach out to Mr. Lachey, and through him maybe work with Mr. Mahler's family. We could perhaps plant a tree in Mr. Mahler's memory somewhere in the city of Hayward. So in honor and memory of Jay Mahler, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.